morning, everyone. How are all of you today? I hope you answered well. I know it's not easy, but we got to keep going. We got to find things to bring us joy. And hey, some of those might even be things that you used to do that you forgot that you enjoyed, like reading books or just watching old movies or watching old television shows or just talking to friends on the phone. At any rate, part of getting through all this, I feel like, is also getting a little bit of exercise so you don't go stir crazy. So today we're going to hit one of my favorite places, Hollywood Forever Cemetery, and we're going to go visit someone who's actually been placed there rather recently. She had a pretty sad story, but she's a very talented lady, and I remember watching her on a television show when I was a kid. I loved this show. It was actually her show, and then all of a sudden, she was not on her own show anymore. I'll tell you more about it as we get there. Daze with Jordan the Lion begins now. Here you can see Sunset Bronson's closed, home of Let's Make a Deal. We're gonna go ahead and enter the side gate today because I want to show you that the side gate was actually used for a filming location. So this entrance right here was actually the studio gates in the miniseries Feud about Bette Davis and Joan Crawford, starring Susan Sarandon and Jessica Lange. These were the studio gates they come into. Came out here a few days ago in the hopes of doing a vlog on someone that was in the mausoleum, but all the mausoleums are locked up, so couldn't end up doing it. And I've tried to do that same vlog about 3 times and something always stops it, whether it be weather or something like this. So we'll see a few famous people along the way, and the woman that we're here to visit is actually buried out near the pond, and there's a lot of famous people out there buried next to her or in the vicinity. And this is definitely one of the more peaceful places to come out and get some exercise. I always find it interesting that this property that is on the other side of the cemetery is Paramount, and that was originally the cemetery's property that they sold to Paramount. That's a very nice memorial. Pretty close. It's right on the other side of this pyramid and all that stuff. So here, of course, we have Johnny Ramone's memorial. And as we come along here, we have Chris Cornell. His changes every time I'm here. It gets bigger and bigger. And this one is Tony Scott, the director. And over here is Anton Yelchin. That was a very sad one. Normally, I'm here a little early. Normally his parents are out here, sitting here. But who we're looking to visit is right over here, right on this corner. So this stone right here, I was actually here 2 or 3 days ago, and her headstone wasn't up yet. It's now up, so we're in luck. Let me show you who we're here to visit. A couple of days ago, it was just a cement slab with the yellow rose on it and a little marker in paper that said Valerie Harper. Now we actually have the true headstone. What a very talented lady. I think we all knew her as Rhoda. She had quite an interesting story. She started out as a dancer. Her family, well, her father was a traveling salesman, lighting salesman, so they ended up moving around quite a bit throughout her life. She lived, she was born in New York, and then they lived in New Jersey, and they lived in California, and they lived in Oregon and Michigan and back to Jersey. And by the time they moved back to Jersey, he was about to be sent out to Oregon again, and she just decided to stay. And she ended up getting in a performing arts school alongside Sal Mineo and Tuesday Weld were in her class. Now, she focused on ballet and eventually was being a chorus girl on Broadway. one of the things that she did that was really interesting to me was she was in something called Wildcats, starring Lucille Ball, and then she was also in something starring Jackie Gleason, but it was in Wildcats that she made a friend known as Joanna Greenwald, and she mixed her personality with Valerie's stepmother, who her father and mother got divorced in 1957, so she mixed basically her new friend from Wildcats with her grandmother, and that's how she came up with Rhoda's personality. Now, an interesting little bit of trivia about Valerie Harper is that her parents thought that she was going to be born a boy, so they had only a boy's name picked out, and then when she came, they had to act fast and come up with a new name, so they actually took the doubles female tennis champions at the time, Valerie and Kay, and that became her name, Valerie Catherine. Valerie was extremely talented, and she of course couldn't be a dancer forever because she had too much talent, and eventually started acting. And even Carl Reiner said he considered her just one of the all-time greats. He had cast her as an understudy to Linda Lavin in the one and only play that he ever wrote and directed, and he said she was just absolutely wonderful to work with. Now, she said her big break really came, she moved out to California in 1968, and she was coming out here back and forth trying to get gigs, and she met a guy named Dick Shaw who became her husband, and they met doing improv, and he was really great for her career. But she said that she was doing a play and she played two different characters, or like a character with two different personalities, and she said, so one of the personalities I did was Ava Braun and the other was Tallulah Bankhead, which was kind of interesting because eventually Valerie would come back to Broadway in 2010 and win an award for playing Tallulah Bankhead. But she said that she was doing that play and a famous agent saw her, Ethel Wynett, saw her in that play and called her in to audition to be Rhoda Morgenstern. Now, Valerie said that when she prepared to do the audition, she kind of prepared it as authentic as possible. Coming in through the window, she pretended she had a bucket with water, with weight in the bucket. She pretended that that was all there, so when she did her audition, it really came off authentic. And right after, they said, hey, we want you to sit and meet Mary. And she was kind of shocked by that. That doesn't normally happen. But they met, they read a little bit, and then she drove home. And she said, as I'm pulling in my apartment, Dick her husband, comes running out and says, you got the part. And she said, there's no way. I mean, I didn't even meet for the network or anything. They don't do that. He said, honey, they called 10 minutes ago, you got the job. They must have called, you know, minutes after she left, because she said it was only a 20-minute drive home, and by that point, she had the gig. Now, Rhoda was a total turning point for her career, as you can imagine. She was Rhoda Morgenstern on Mary Tyler Moore, one of the biggest shows on television, and she ended up winning 3 Emmy Awards for her portrayal of Rhoda. And then they gave her own show in '74, and for 4 years, she was Rhoda on Rhoda. In fact, the wedding episode of Rhoda was considered the highest or the most watched show of all time at the time. She wasn't just on Mary Tyler Moore and Rhoda. She had a pretty thriving career, and then eventually in the 80s, she got her own show called Valerie. And at the end of the second season, basically she had a contract dispute with Lorimar and NBC, and they basically fired her. Now, she sued them, and she said later that, you know, she said, Lorimar and I got along great after, you know, it's all water under the bridge, we're friends now, but she said at the time, basically, that they had buyer's remorse. They had made this show around her, and she felt that after 2 seasons, they were feeling like they should have cast somebody else, and so she knew that Sandy Duncan had a deal, and if they put Sandy Duncan in the show replacing Valerie, that would basically fulfill their obligation to Sandy Duncan. So that's basically what happened. Off screen, they basically said that Valerie it was first called Valerie, and then they said that she died in a car accident off camera, and then it became Valerie's family, and then they changed it to the Hogan family once Sandy Duncan came in. But Valerie said that she had no ill will and she was still friends with the people that she made the show with. It just, in the end, it just didn't work out. Now in the year 2000, Valerie ran for Screen Actors Guild president against Melissa Gilbert. She didn't win, but she ended up sitting on the board, and then her and Mary Tyler Moore came back and did a performance together. They did like a one-night movie called Mary and Rhoda, and they were friends till the end. Now, sadly, in 2009, Valerie Harper found out that she was ill. Now, first, the health problems were that Valerie found out that she had lung cancer, and she battled that. And then in 2013, she found out that she had a rare form of cancer that forms around your brain, and they gave her 3 months to live. Now, what's really amazing is that she had a very positive attitude about finding out about this, and she didn't let it stop her from living, and she ended up living on for another half a decade. And you know, she was remarried to a man named Tony Cacciati, and he was really just everything to her from the time they married in '87 on. He helped do business things with her, but in the end, he was her caretaker. And sadly, this past year in 2019, Valerie had done chemo. She had done everything you can to fight this cancer that was growing cells in her, and unfortunately she lost her battle. But I remember seeing an article where they were saying that the doctors had basically told her husband that it was time to prepare her time to go to hospice, and he said, no, she's not going to hospice. I'm going to take care of her as long as I can, as long as she's alive. And he was there till the very end. Now, I mentioned when we got here, I had just been here a couple of days ago walking around and noticed that it was a different headstone. Her headstone hadn't been laid yet, and when I got here, there was a man taking photos, and he said that he was a good friend of hers and that she was an extremely wonderful person inside and out. So rest in peace, Valerie Harper. And here you can see it says, Mia Valeria, I will miss and love you with every fiber of my being through this world and beyond the end of time. Love forever, Anthony. And it says, you are my eternal son. Love, Christina. That was her daughter, her adopted daughter. Now let me show you a few other interesting people buried around here. As you walk away from Valerie's grave and you walk towards the Hollywood Memorial Mausoleum over here where Valentino is buried, or entombed, you come over to a headstone here that says, Mae E. White, Nanny. If you ever watched the Carol Burnett show, Carol would always tug her ear to her grandmother who was watching in Hollywood. Mae White was Carol Burnett's grandmother. And then we can't go in to visit Valentino either because it's all locked up as well. You can see on the very bottom it has another contact security sign. And it looks like a future person to be laid to rest here will be named Clement von Frankenstein. Then as we walk out of here, you can see Toto. There's a memorial for Toto, even though he's not actually here. He was buried on private property that was turned into the freeway, so they put a memorial for him here from The Wizard of Oz. This monument is dedicated to the memory of the beloved Toto from 1939 Wizard of Oz. After the death of Toto, originally named Terry, 1945 owner and trainer Carl Spitz buried Canine Terrier on his ranch in Studio City. The 1958 construction of the Ventura Freeway destroyed her resting place. Somebody even left a little dog bone, a little dog biscuit. Now I don't have any clue who Mama Irene is, but what an interesting looking memorial. Then since this cemetery at one point was segregated, Hattie McDaniel from Gone with the Wind, Mammy, wanted to be buried here but wasn't able to be. So they offered her family to move her, and they didn't want to do that. So they did this honorary Hattie McDaniel memorial here, honoring her last wish. And then this monument all the way down at the end of the reflecting pool is Douglas Fairbanks and Douglas Fairbanks Jr. All right, my friends, we're gonna head out of here. Talk about timing is everything. I literally almost did this vlog 2 or 3 days ago, and then I changed my mind. I wasn't really prepared for it, and you notice a couple of days later, we got to see the actual true headstone that's gonna be there for forever. So, rest in peace, Valerie Harper. And back out the way we came in, the studio gates, sort of. And in the distance, the Hollywood sign. Take in a little local art on the way home. That's a tough one to remember right now, but we gotta try. Alright, my friends, we're gonna call it a night. I want to thank Alan Malone for becoming my newest Patreon, and I always say timing is everything sometimes, and if I would have vlogged this a couple of days ago, we wouldn't have got to see that beautiful headstone. So, timing is everything sometimes. Have a great night, everyone. We'll see you all very soon. Goodbye.